In a move that stunned Hollywood and royal watchers alike, Tyler Perry threatened legal action against Prince Harry and Meghan Markle if they don't repay a $14 million debt within 30 days. This public ultimatum, issued in December, wasn't just a legal maneuver, it was a spotlight on the fragile financial scaffolding beneath their lifestyle. With their Montecito mansion on the line, the Sussexes are no longer just battling for brand relevance.
If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update.
They're fighting to keep their home. Their once celebrated break from the monarchy is facing a harsh reality check. As the IRS investigates their foundation and asset freezes loom, the risk of foreclosure now threatens not only their real estate but their reputation. Major deals with Netflix and Spotify have stalled, and trusted backers like Perry are turning away. The mansion, once a symbol of freedom, now underscores how deeply their independence was built on borrowed time and borrowed money. Tyler Perry is not playing the silent benefactor anymore. In December 2025, he went public with a $14 million bombshell. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry owe him money, and lots of it. According to Perry, that debt isn't just a vague IOU, it's tied directly to the Montecito mansion the couple has called home since their royal exit. And he didn't just whisper this behind closed doors. He gave them 30 days. Pay up, or legal action's coming. This wasn't some petty squabble. It was a very public unraveling of one of the most high-profile alliances the Sussexes had left. Perry had been more than generous, lending them his Beverly Hills mansion in 2020 when they first fled the UK.
If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update.
But this wasn't charity. The $14 million loan was reportedly part of a structured deal meant to help them secure their California home base. Now, it looks like that arrangement soured fast. Meghan, once celebrated for her financial independence and Hollywood savvy, is now at the center of a growing financial spectacle. The Montecito mansion, initially flaunted as a crown jewel of their post-royal life, is now functioning as collateral, tied up in debt that's spiraling out of control. The irony, the very house that symbolized their freedom from the monarchy may become the symbol of their financial collapse. The public response has been brutal. Whispers of overspending and overreaching have followed the couple for years, but Perry's statement poured gasoline on a smoldering narrative. Meghan's carefully curated image of entrepreneurial independence has started to crack under the pressure of actual numbers and overdue payments. Harry hasn't escaped scrutiny either. His role in the couple's financial decisions has raised eyebrows, especially as more details leak about their borrowing habits. Multiple sources suggest that Perry isn't the only private financier they've turned to. Hollywood insiders, tech billionaires, and other big-name backers have quietly loaned funds to keep their ventures and lifestyle afloat. The dream of becoming financially independent from a crown might have been noble, but in practice, it looks like a house of cards. With projects failing and income shrinking, those debts aren't just inconvenient. They're threatening to pull the entire Sussex brand underwater. Together, Harry and Meghan have positioned themselves as a global power couple ready to conquer media, philanthropy, and branded ventures. But as the dust settles, what's left is a tangled financial web, one that seems to rely less on revenue and more on favors, loans, and goodwill from powerful friends. The Arch-Ewell Foundation was supposed to be a cornerstone of their legacy. Instead, it's facing IRS scrutiny and asset freezes. Then there's the Netflix deal, once hailed as a game-changer. After an underwhelming performance and creative fallout, the shine has worn off. The Spotify deal? Cancelled. Multiple projects are being shelved or underdelivered, further straining an already thin cash flow. The couple may have walked away from the monarchy, but they've stepped into a pressure cooker of high-stakes celebrity finance, with no royal safety net. The cracks in their narrative have been showing for a while. Even their bombshell Oprah interview, which once gave them a wave of public support, is now being re-evaluated under a different light. That same platform that painted them as victims of royal coldness is now seen by some critics as a beginning of an overexposed brand campaign. It's not just about press anymore, it's about receipts. And as Perry's public statement proves, those receipts are real and growing. The idea that they could make it entirely on their own has been complicated by the revelation that so much of their life has been funded behind the scenes. In retrospect, their declarations of independence feel less like a reset and more like a rebrand, with very expensive packaging. And back in the UK, the royal family has been notably silent. But silence doesn't mean ignorance. The fact that Perry's demand has gone public likely hasn't gone unnoticed by the palace. It serves as a public vindication for those within the family who questioned the Sussexes' strategy from the start. Walking away from royal duties, titles, and funding was always going to be a gamble. Now it looks like that gamble is turning into a full-blown crisis. Without the institutional backing and legacy wealth of the monarchy, the Sussexes have had to swim with sharks. And some of those sharks are now circling. The breakdown with Perry, once their closest ally, could signal the beginning of more public fractures. If Perry's gone public, who's next? Behind the scenes, there's talk of growing emotional strain, too. The fallout from these financial revelations isn't just legal or economic, it's personal. Friends, allies, and even family members who once supported Harry and Meghan have reportedly backed away. The royal rift hasn't healed. If anything, the silence from William and Catherine has grown colder. In the context of all this debt and exposure, Catherine's earlier warnings, quiet but pointed, now read as more than just family tension. They hint at a deeper concern for Harry's well-being, especially as he navigates a way to their unraveling finances. For a couple who once sought healing and autonomy, the pressure may be doing the opposite. And speaking of royal scandals, comparisons are starting to get uncomfortable. Some corners of the internet are now drawing lines between this financial debacle and Prince Andrew's own spectacular fall from grace. Different in nature, but similar in structure, massive reputational damage, ties to shady deals, and a growing sense that the truth was always just under the surface. Andrew's Epstein entanglement and costly settlements drained not just his finances, but also the monarchy's image. Now Harry and Meghan's situation threatens to do the same, just from the outside looking in. The longer they stay silent, the more people start drawing parallels. The irony is staggering. Meghan, once a vocal critic of royal dysfunction, now finds herself at the center of a scandal that's all about mismanagement, optics, and public embarrassment. And Prince Andrew, once the cautionary tale, is no longer the only one with headlines about unpaid obligations and backroom deals. This isn't just bad press, it's brand erosion. When the public sees two royal-adjacent figures in hot water over money, the specifics start to blur. What remains is the impression of a family, royal or post-royal, plagued by entitlement, missteps, and a refusal to acknowledge their realities until it's too late. And now, with a 30-day clock ticking, all eyes are on the Montecito mansion. Once the Sussexes' sanctuary, it now represents everything they are trying to hold together. If Perry follows through with legal action, the consequences could be devastating. Foreclosure, public court battles, and more leaks are all on the table. This story isn't just about one loan. It's about a house built on borrowed money, propped up by collapsing deals, and guarded by a narrative that's starting to crumble. What happens if Perry sues? What if others follow? At that point, it's not about privacy or reinvention anymore. It's about survival. And for viewers watching this unfold, what do you think is next? Is there a way back from this? Or has the Sussex story crossed a line it can't uncross? Tap that subscribe button, share your take in the comments, and make sure you're following. We're just getting started. There's a moment in every high-profile fall when silence starts sounding like an admission. For Harry, that moment may be now. As the legal deadline inches closer, his absence from public comment is deafening. He once said he wanted to break the cycle, to carve a life outside the firm. But now, with millions on the line and a friend-turned-creditor tightening the screws, people are asking, did Harry just trade one gilded cage for another, this time built on debt instead of duty? What began as a symbolic escape from royal constraints is now tangled in real-world constraints, interest rates, unpaid invoices, legal threats. There's no press team strong enough to spin this as freedom anymore. And unless Harry confronts it, the perception might harden into something worse than scandal, irrelevance. Meghan hasn't been seen addressing the issue directly either, but insiders claim she's scrambling behind the scenes. Meetings with lawyers, damage control with PR teams, and conversations with former allies reportedly make up her calendar these days. For someone who once captivated global media on her own terms, the pivot from strategy to survival mode has been swift. She's always understood the power of narrative, But even the sharpest strategists can't spin a financial mess this complex. The optics are brutal. A woman hailed for breaking barriers now forced to negotiate behind closed doors to protect the life she built outside the palace walls. There's no script for this part of the journey, and that's exactly the problem. As a couple, the Sussexes once rode a wave of public support, glossy magazine covers, billion-dollar deals, and the moral high ground of escape. But the shine has worn off. When Spotify publicly cut ties, it wasn't just a business split. It was an industry warning. The buzzword-heavy branding didn't translate into substance. And when Netflix started trimming the fat, the Sussexes' slate wasn't spared. The Montecito home was supposed to be the physical proof that their gamble paid off. Now, it's an expensive liability. Add that to collapsing deals and diminishing goodwill, and what's left is a financial equation that doesn't balance. Even for a couple used to controlling their image, the tide is turning, and fast. From across the pond, the royal family's silence reads more like a strategy than a coincidence. The palace has nothing to gain from speaking out, and everything to gain by letting the Sussexes' decisions speak for themselves. The firm may be many things, but subtle retaliation is their specialty. And this is a masterclass in letting someone unravel publicly without lifting a finger. There was a time when reconciliation felt possible, but with each unfolding headline, the gap widens. The Sussexes can no longer return without the stain of financial controversy trailing behind them. And even if they wanted to, the doors might already be closed. For good. As for Perry, his public stand has changed the game entirely. For years, he was their most powerful behind-the-scenes supporter. Now, he's the face of their unraveling. His decision to take the matter public wasn't just about collecting money. It was about drawing a line. The same man who gave them refuge now threatens to take back the very foundation they built. People are already speculating. Was this just business gone bad, or did the friendship collapse long before the loan was due? Either way, Perry's move has made it clear no one, not even Hollywood's elite, is willing to bankroll the Sussexes forever without a return. And if Tyler Perry is out, who's? The interview that once marked their rebirth now feels like the beginning of the end. When Oprah asked them what they wanted, their answer was clear: financial and personal freedom. But now, 3 years later, it's hard not to see the contradiction. They sought freedom, but found obligation. They ran from control, but ended up in contracts. That moment on Oprah's couch, once seen as a cultural reset, now looks like a mirage, hopeful, compelling, and painfully out of sync with reality. The very independence they championed is a thing slipping furthest from their grasp. And through it all, Catherine remains an unintended mirror. In the face of public pressure and personal pain, she stayed composed, detached, but not absent. It's not lost on the public that while the Sussexes' brand has spiraled into chaos, the Cambridge have quietly solidified their future. No podcast deals, no Netflix drama, just a crown, the duty, and a surprisingly modern stability. Even Meghan's staunchest defenders can't ignore the contrast anymore. Where once the Sussexes looked bold and trailblazing, now they seem chaotic and reactive. Meanwhile, Catherine continues her ascent, silent, strategic, and unbothered. Even Queen Camilla has reportedly grown weary of the Sussex drama. What once may have been dismissed as a family feud is now viewed as a reputational risk to the monarchy. The family's focus has shifted inward, protecting the institution from further fallout, whether that comes from legal drama, tax investigations, or a foreclosure scandal splash across American tabloids. Camilla's public appearances have been notably more subdued, even cautious. There's no need for damage control. The Sussexes are doing it for them. And as more revelations come to light, the royals don't need to attack. They just need to wait. Meanwhile, William and Catherine's steady path has never looked more appealing. Once accused of being too traditional, too cautious, they now appear as the only ones playing the long game effectively. The contrast couldn't be sharper. While one royal couple cuts ribbon after ribbon, the other is ducking headlines, legal threats, and financial scrutiny. The public is watching, and the comparisons are inevitable. One couple chose consistency. The other chose chaos. And in a world increasingly allergic to inauthenticity, the Sussexes' glamorous narrative is being replaced with something far less flattering. And looming over all of this is the memory of Queen Elizabeth II. Her passing was a turning point, Not just for the monarchy, but for Harry and Meghan's relationship with it. While she was alive, there was always a sense of restraint. Now, that quiet anchor is gone, and so are the last threads of discretion. Would she have intervened in this mess? No one knows, but her absence is palpable, and the financial freefall, the broken friendships, the public embarrassment, it all feels like the unraveling of not just a couple, but a legacy she tried to protect. The final irony, in trying so hard to break away and define themselves on their own terms, Harry and Meghan may have ended up creating the very thing they wanted to avoid, a public drama defined not by vision, but by damage control. The Sussex brand, once riding high on waves of reinvention and rebellion, is now facing the same problem as any over-leveraged startup, burn rate. Not of capital, but of goodwill. When your entire persona is built around transparency, independence, and empowerment, and then your name ends up tied to secret loans and looming lawsuits, the foe is louder and harsher. People forgave the Oprah interview. They tolerated the docuseries. But financial scandal? That hits differently. Because now, it's not just about opinion. It's about math. The kind that doesn't lie, doesn't flatter, and doesn't care about royal drama. Either you can pay it back, or you can't. And then there's the Perry piece that won't go away. When a Hollywood mogul like Tyler Perry speaks, it travels. This wasn't a background quote or legal leak. It was deliberate. And it sent a message, not just to the Sussexes, but to the ecosystem of donors, collaborators, and corporate backers who might be reconsidering their involvement. Nobody wants to be the next unpaid creditor. Perry going public might have been personal, but it also triggered something professional, a real-time audit of the Sussexes' trustworthiness. If even he had to threaten legal action, what about everyone else? And for Meghan, this could be the most damaging part. Her image was never just built on fame. It was precision-branded around control. Every interview, every project, every appearance was shaped to reinforce a story of reinvention, of empowerment, of smart, stylish independence. But when the numbers fall apart, the narrative follows. How do you reconcile a woman positioned as a self-made force with the reality of being $14 million in debt to a friend? The critics don't have to exaggerate. They just have to quote. Suddenly, the script flips, from savvy to slippery, from inspiring to indebted. His part in this story is no longer just symbolic. It's strategic and increasingly scrutinized. He was a prince who broke free, the royal who said no to tradition. But now, that defiance looks expensive. And the cost isn't just financial. It's reputational. You can only claim you're forging your own path for so long before people ask how you're paying for it. The optics of being a husband, father, and founder struggling to keep a mansion afloat while your media deals collapse? That's not rebellious. That's reckless. And people are starting to say it out loud. Looking back, that Oprah moment feels like a time capsule. Hopeful, raw, bold, but it's also revealing how little of the plan that followed actually worked. The charitable empire, under investigation. The media deals, shrinking or gone. The big Hollywood pivot, stalled. It's not just about sympathy anymore. It's about results. And the gap between what was promised and what was delivered is widening. What was once seen as brave honesty is now being reevaluated as a well-crafted plea for sympathy that didn't come with the follow-through people expected. And now, they are doing the one thing celebrities fear most. They are losing interest. Meanwhile, Catherine's image, once cast in contrast, has quietly solidified. She didn't give any sit-downs. She didn't launch a podcast. She didn't even respond publicly to the Oprah interview. But here she is, calm, unbothered, still standing. And next to the Sussexes' firestorm, her silence feels almost like a response in itself. The public sees it. The press sees it. And for Meghan, that comparison is now more brutal than ever, not because Catherine did anything wrong, but because she didn't have to do anything at all. Even Camilla, once a target of Sussex critiques, is looking less like a villain and more like a seasoned survivor. She's not out giving interviews or name-dropping Netflix. She's holding down the role, showing up when needed, and staying out of headlines. That's it. That's the strategy. And in the age of oversharing, that kind of restraint suddenly looks brilliant. The Sussexes told us everything, and now it's all being used against them. Meanwhile, Camilla said nothing. And so, there's nothing to fight over. That silence, it's the late Queen's presence, or rather her absence, hovers over this entire saga. She was a final filter, publicly adored, privately trusted. When she was alive, the Sussexes still had a thread connecting them to the monarchy, to tradition, to grace. But without her, the break feels final. Her steady, deliberate diplomacy is gone. What's left are headlines, conflict, lawsuits, debt. For all their talk of building something new, it's starting to feel like they burned the bridge before finishing the road. Back at the center of it all sits that Montecito estate. Gorgeous, sprawling, symbolically loaded. But now, the mansion isn't just a home. It's a liability. It's the thing they risk losing if Perry moves forward. And if he does, it's not just about eviction. It's about collapse. Because once that property enters legal proceedings, everything else gets dragged with it. Financial records, email threads, communications with donors and lenders. You can't hide behind PR statements when you're in court. And that's the real risk. They won't just lose money. They'll lose control of the story. And the royal family? They'll say nothing. They don't have to. The press is doing the work for them. The tabloids are ruthless. The public, increasingly jaded. The silence from the palace only adds fuel. It suggests distance. It suggests they've moved on. And maybe they have. Because while Harry and Meghan deal with headlines, the rest of the firm is prepping for coronations, state visits, and royal duties. For them, the story has moved on. For the Sussexes, it's frozen in place, one crisis at a time. So now we wait. Will Perry really pull the trigger? Will the mansion go up for sale under legal pressure? Will new lawsuits emerge? The truth is, we're watching a modern fairy tale turn into a financial thriller. And the ending? Still unwritten. Hit that like if you're following this saga closely. Share this video with a friend who still defends a Netflix special. And drop a comment. Do you think they can pull out of this spiral, or has the damage already been done? Either way, tap that subscribe button, because this story is far from over.